What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Metalcore Nerds. It's a new year, so I got a new format for everyone. A ton of new content coming out. Pretty much every week this year, we're going to get new MCU. So I decided, let's do after shows for every MCU show, every MCU movie. We'll go into DC movies too. There's a few coming out this year. We'll still have some wrestling after shows, stuff like that. We'll keep some of the normal stuff, but I want to try something different. So joining me for the WandaVision after shows, this is going to be a more of a prediction show for what we think might come in the series. I have Tyler Small of Saving Face, or sorry,
Saving
Saving
Face.
Vice.
That'd be a good band name.
I was working on, I do stuff for a print shop, and someone is Saving Face Barbershop. And as I was looking up old invoices for them, I kept typing in Saving Vice. So now it's only natural that I would say it wrong.
No, that's okay. Hey, no hard feelings. I like whenever I'm concentrating, like I can speak for hours and hours, and the second I have to record a video of me saying something for the band, I'll be like, fuck, and just like I just trip over my words whenever it matters.
Of course, it's how it goes.
Yeah, so I hear it. No pressure.
But awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining me in this journey, which I'm sure is going to be a crazy ride. It's a funny story. I remember you Instagram messaging the Metalcore Nerds Instagram, just showing a ton of your figures and comic books and stuff like that. And you're like, this is my official audition tape to being on the show. And I was like, well, it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was actually just telling the band that I was like, I'm pretty sure that photo got me in there. Like I saw this and I was like, bro, this is like where I belong. this is like my duality it's like the second I'm not in a band anymore, like the whole nerd side of me is just going to completely envelop and swallow my life again. It's like the only reason I don't have an entire bedroom just full of that stuff is because I have to spend it on band stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I started this whole thing, because I know a lot of people involved in the music scene at large love pop culture, whether it be games or wrestling or comic books or whatever. And so I wanted to combine them together. So many people hit me up and been like, wow, I never knew, Zach from Left Behind was in the MCU like that and stuff like that. So it's that stuff, hearing that stuff it makes all of this like worth it. I mean, it's fun for me anyway. We were talking a little bit before this. I could talk about this stuff forever. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Hours.
Oh yeah.
So it's cool to be able to do it and, put it out there and have people respond to it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, every time I've done almost any other interview, it's like, God forbid someone brings up Marvel or something in passing, because it just goes off. I had a whole podcast that went like almost 2 hours over time where we were just rambling about Mandalorian or something. And like, it wasn't even in the podcast. We just both got on this like back and forth. Like, it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole and never come back.
That's how it goes.
That's why it's so odd. It's why it's like a lifestyle.
Yeah. It can be, for sure. So what got you into comic book related stuff?
Oh man, it's like, I mean, I've had comic books, even if it was only a couple, whether it was ones my mom got me or, in passing, as long as I can remember. I remember like one of my first comics I had was like an old Ben Reilly, Spider-Man comic. I had, some old Fantastic Four stuff, some stuff from garage sales. I had like every action figure from the animated Spider-Man show.
Yes.
And the Batman show. I like DC a lot. It's one of those things where it's like I could not fully engross myself in more than one, and I like Marvel more than DC. But I was really down the whole rabbit hole of like Flash and Arrow when the Arrowverse started and stuff.
Same.
But I kind of went back to Marvel and kind of fell off of it. Like I'll watch everything and anything Batman. Like I'll always follow Batman. I like the Flash. I'll watch the DCU stuff. It's been kind of a shit show, but I think they're finally trying to get it back on the rails now with this multiverse establishment and everything. Yeah. That's a whole other conversation. But I'm always excited to see what they do. They're doing a lot now that I think they should have done from day one, like do Batman Beyond, bring Michael Keaton in, do the Flash paradox, like have different universes so they can like keep Batfleck, because Batfleck was awesome. If you don't like Batfleck, don't argue with me. I don't want to have that fight. I just think you're wrong. Like I loved Ben Affleck as Batman. I'd like to see him. I also love Robert Pattinson and really wanted him as Batman before he got cast. So I'm super hyped about that, and I think the idea of having, there's so many different versions of these characters anyways. And now everybody is on board with the multiverse idea. So they literally have no excuse not to just do whatever they want anymore, because there's a way to rationalize it any way you split it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, if you go back, I could go back forever. It's like Batman, it was just, it was mostly Marvel when I was a kid. And then anime I got into really early. So I had a lot of manga. I had manga a lot more than I ever had comic books.
Okay.
Because for me, comic books, especially when I was younger, and it was so impossible to try to wrap your head around all the retcons and the different storylines. And like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad the Ultimate Universe just went to shit, because like I was like, there, now we got two different fucking like whole different timelines that are all different. And I didn't really like a lot of what they did with the Ultimate Marvel stuff. I'm kind of glad they liquidated that, because I feel like some of it got a little weird. And but yeah, I mean, I was pretty much, I'd have to say Marvel was probably my biggest start into all kinds of comic book stuff. And then as I got a little older, I started getting a better grasp for like, okay, well, here's a story or a character I really like. I'm just gonna follow that character and try to find out as much as I can and get as many comics about that character. Like, oh, here's a story arc I want, and I kind of just build it up from there. Because I feel like with Marvel, and I'm sure you could agree with this, it's like, I'll have the superior. I have like I love Superior Spider-Man. Like, he's one of my favorites of all time. So I have anything you can buy about Superior Spider-Man. Same with Winter Soldier, which is like 4 comic books. But unfortunately, hopefully with the show there might be a little more. But Winter Soldier is like that underdog superhero who's like one of my favorites that has almost no merchandise to go for him. But like, you'll be reading one comic and then you'll be like, there'll be an offshoot of a character that shows up in that comic, or a side story that you end up following, and next thing you know, you're buying a whole other series that stemmed off that one event. I don't know anybody who has read everything or knows everything. I don't know.
No.
I know there's people who do, but I just I like too many different things where I can't focus that much into just one thing.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I actually didn't get, like, the most common denominator for people getting into comic book related stuff has been animated series. It's for me, and for a lot of people who I've had on the podcast, it's been X-Men, the animated series, Spider-Man, the animated series, and Batman, the animated series. It's like the biggest through line I've seen through doing this for like the past year. Everyone is
I should have brought up X-Men. I shouldn't have skipped X-Men.
It's the same. It's the same time period.
Well,
if you say Spider-Man and Batman, it kind of goes with it.
Well, that's the thing too. And like, it was like you were introduced into basically what the MCU is in animated form years ago. Like, all those shows were connected and overlapped. All those characters joined together. So it's like if you were watching Fantastic Four, Iron Man, X-Men, all those characters and those shows all crossed over. And then same with like the Justice League animated series that stemmed off of the Batman series and the Superman series and Batman Beyond and Static Shock was amazing. It was so well written. It was so well done. And I know Young Justice is cool and Teen Titans was dope, but I don't think anything has lived up to that. And I even heard recently that they were going to be maybe reviving Batman Beyond and the Batman animated series from the 90s, but I know that's like a whole other topic. But
on a DC note, if anyone has HBO Max, they uploaded everything. DC animated movie, like, to ever, even the new ones are all on there.
I have a whole list.
I've watched a bunch of them, but I just keep watching the ones I haven't, and those are so sick because it's pretty much like anime to manga. Like, they pretty much directly adapt it and just put it into cartoon form. Like, and I think it's sick.
It's a missed opportunity with Marvel, and I feel like they intentionally do it because they want the MCU to be the main storyline you follow.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like Marvel could have done so much with animated movies based on comics that they missed that opportunity a little bit. But yeah, like the stuff's amazing. Like, I'll probably Batman Beyond is one of my favorite series of all time.
Yeah.
And I saw that one was on there, and I literally was yelling at my girlfriend, like, guess what? Like, like, they totally put it on here. I'm like, I was about to buy the whole series, and now I can just stream it. So I'm pretty hyped about it.
I was waiting because I had DC Universe when it first came out, which obviously it got dissolved into HBO Max at this point. They turned it into like they pretty much turned it into Marvel Unlimited, pretty much. It's just like it's the same thing. But it was like both at first. I swear to God, I had been one of the only like 10 people that had it in the world or something. But it had all of Batman Beyond, all of the animated series, It didn't have as much of the animated movies, but it had like quite a few. But that's where obviously where Titans came. That was an exclusive. Doom
Doom Patrol,
Patrol
right?
was
Yeah,
an
Doom.
exclusive. Yeah,
I heard
both
that's
of
good.
those. Both I love both those shows. Doom Patrol is a better show, but it's very wacky. It's super. It I wouldn't go into it and be like expecting like this is a normal comic book show. It's not. It's very weird, but it's cool. Titans is cool. They build up a lot of cool story, but each season they've had 2 seasons, but each season finale just didn't hit. Like it's so much story, and then the finales have both been so anticlimactic. You're just like, where, what?
So,
You
so
like
sort
build
of
up
like
to
Game,
like nothing.
so sort of like Game of Thrones.
I mean, I guess for the last season,
Yeah, well,
if every season was like that, then maybe.
well, I felt like I'm re-binging Game of Thrones right now, and I feel like I can't tell I'm watching like in any other show, you without looking at what episode you're on, you know you're at the finale. With that show, I didn't even realize I went into another season because I felt like nothing ever concludes in any season, really. Like something really traumatic will happen, but
Yeah.
nothing is ever resolved. So like
No,
it's
not
this
really.
constant you're left wanting with every finale on that show to
Which
some
is
end.
smart in a way. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it's why it was so popular, I think.
Yeah.
But it's also just irritates the fuck out of me because I'm impatient. So it's like,
And then
you know
it's
what I mean?
funny though, because they finally give you those answers and everyone just wasn't satisfied with it.
Yeah,
You know
but
what I mean?
I felt like they had this. It was almost like they had this lab and this blueprint, like the MCU had, where everything was mapped out perfectly and strategically. And
Yeah.
then the last season, like it caught on fire and burnt down, and then they were like, "Fuck, we got to wrap this up." Jon Snow goes to the woods. Fuck, this happens, and
Yeah.
well, what about those things? Hopefully, people won't remember those loose ends. Like that was kind of what they did with that show. Like it's kind of how I saw it, and it was like, and I kind of was like mad at Game of Thrones, and it fell off my radar entirely since the finale. But I started rewatching it again, and I was like, man, this is literally one of my favorite shows I've ever watched. I just was so disappointed with how it ended that I literally almost almost threw the whole series out in my brain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So Sam and I, we binged it after it ended. So I previously watched seasons 1 through 3 right up until like the Red Wedding, and then I don't know why I just stopped watching it. I think it was just too much for me to handle because there's so many names, so many different families. It's a lot to take in at once. So I think I was just busy at the time. I was in a band then, so I was just like, I don't care about this. I'm done. And then she's like, after it ended, she's like, oh, let's watch the whole thing. And I was like, all right, I'm down. And me watching that after like watching it, even if it was years ago, I was like, oh, okay, now I get this a lot more. It's like watching a Christopher Nolan movie, you know, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the exact same way. Like this is my third time watching it through,
yeah.
I would say. And not counting like the first time when I was catching it, because I did the same thing as you. I binged it up to the season where the Red Wedding happened, and that was when I started following it. So, but now I'm rewatching it. I'm like, this is the first time where I actually knew who the fuck they were talking about when they were saying everybody's house names.
Yeah.
Because it would be like Baratheon, Rhaegar, and like he's the father of the uncle. And I'm like, dude, there's so much cousin fuckery going on. I don't know who's who anymore. And then I was like, now I get it. Because when you're binging it all at once, you don't have this year-long disconnect where you forget all of those threads that they kind of leave hanging in the wind. And then you have to try to remember all of these little minute details because they cram years into like 8 episodes, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Exactly. And then when we finished it, we were like, I mean, the last season wasn't as good as the other seasons, but I was like, it makes sense. I was like, I'm not going to say I loved the last season, but I don't think it was terrible like everyone says it was.
Yeah, I don't think it was like, but I also feel the same way about, I feel like we're talking about everything but WandaVision, but I always feel the same way I feel the same way about the new Star Wars trilogy. Like, I think that, like, after just reading the Rise of Skywalker book alone, like, okay, obviously, like, I let go of the EU a long time ago. Like, it's been almost like 10 years now. Like, give up
like all the legend stuff. And
yeah, I grew up on it, but it's like, yo, if I cling to that, I'm just gonna be a grumpy old dude for the rest of my life who just bitches and never enjoys Star Wars again. So it's like, sweet, I know that it's better. I know that it came first, but now they're pulling all the lore from it anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's why they did it.
Yeah, I'll get to see that. But like purely objectively, like I really liked the new trilogies. I think that there was a lot of tweak. I think you could have done 20 minutes of tweaking to every one of those movies and fixed everything wrong with them. Like, and it was
Yeah.
mostly like stuff that the novelization already fills in for you.
Yeah.
As far like once you just read the book, it's a lot of it like, oh, that stormtrooper girl that met Finn was Lando's daughter. The First Order stole from him. That would have been useful information in the movie. Like that kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Luke's DNA from his hand was used to make the clone of Rey's father. She actually has Skywalker DNA. That would have been like, you know what I mean? It's like a lot of little things that is in the book that they just left out of the film that that were almost all of the things that pissed people off.
Yeah, that was I love the new trilogy too. I'm a big defender of almost any Star Wars movie. I think there is no bad Star Wars movie. I just don't think there is a perfect Star Wars movie besides
I agree.
Besides
Empire besides Empire, yeah.
Or if you like, or if I broke it down to this, if the last 4 episodes of the final season of Clone Wars, that'd probably be a perfect Star Wars movie.
Yeah, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau should just have the keys to the Star Wars universe. Period.
And they're kind of giving it to him in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they've seen it. Well, it's like they like you saw what they did with one show, so they're like, now we're gonna do 40 shows. Like,
yeah. And I think I know a lot of people are worried about quality and stuff like that, but I don't think Filoni and Favreau are going to let that stuff slide, at least with their
because they are us
shows.
They're like us, though. They are us. They are the guys who paid attention. Like, you see the behind the scenes footage, and he's like, oh yeah, this and this, because Greedo, he did this, and then Dave Filoni's like, no, Greedo said that. You know what I mean? It's like that little, like, he knows what character said what in what timeline like, they know those details. And it's like, when you just have these big filmmakers who are just making a blockbuster movie, they don't realize that, like, I feel like, to be honest, I'm a firm believer that you can love Star Wars movies all you want, but you will never be a true Star Wars fan if you don't look outside the films, because the lore of Star Wars is what makes it what it is. It's the books, the games, the shows, the like it's almost like Star Wars is made to be like, sweet, here's these 20 characters that you might only see for 2 minutes, but they have like massive background implications and like other storylines that you don't know about that will all come back around later. And it's like, I feel like Boba Fett invented that stereotype. You know what I mean? To some end, you know, and I look at it that way. Like, and I like, after reading the Kylo comic too, I was like, and then that coupled in with what they're doing with Mando and the First Order, I feel like there is an endless amount of gaps that can be filled that will completely enhance, enrich, explain, and absolve the new trilogy of all of its problems. And
they're
like,
just
even
doing what Clone Wars did for the prequels, but they're doing it live action.
Yeah, and even Luke's the whole Luke thing. Yes, what they did with Luke was asinine, but Luke was also older in that trilogy than he ever was in the EU. And now that they like, there's still 30 years of Luke being a badass that we could still see. So it's like, if they're willing to give us that, I mean, I don't have any objections to, like, I thought what they did with Luke made sense and was really cool, and a cool, dark, mature undertone of it. Everyone was mad because all we fucking wanted when they announced that trilogy was to see old Master Luke be a badass. And we didn't get that, so we shat on it regardless of what was good about it. So that's how I kind of see about it.
That we did see him as a badass because he force protected himself across the universe.
But like, people, but you got more badass than that. Well, yeah, I feel like if you're not someone who, like I said, read books, read comics, who really, because I mean, did you know that there's force fire?
No,
it's not like you can make force fire. There's force. So there's the implications of like what you can do with the force go so far beyond anything you see in the movies, and like shit like that goes over people's heads. Like, they're not thinking, oh shit, that's really badass, he's so powerful, he did that. They're thinking, oh, what the fuck, where's the lightsaber fight? You know, my biggest complaint with that sequence was like, I know that they were like, oh yeah, well, it was to make a point that Kylo was so mad he wasn't paying attention, but like, Luke's vision should have had a fucking green lightsaber, like not the lightsaber that Kylo just broke in half 5 minutes ago. Like, that was the biggest issue with that whole sequence for me, was like Luke showing up not with his green lightsaber, even
maybe
as
that was part of the misdirect, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what they said. They're like, oh, we wanted it to be like, oh, you noticed, but Kylo didn't notice because he's so mad. And it's like, I don't think that was worth the confusion that it had for most people, and not seeing Luke with his green lightsaber for me. That was like my really biggest thing. And then the whole gambling planet with Finn. That
It was
whole
a little
sequence,
much. Yeah.
it was dope up until it made no sense at all, to where like they went there for this one thing that was the only thing that could save the resistance,
And they
and then they were
didn't get
like,
that thing.
yeah, well, it was worth it because we freed some animals. I mean, the universe is doomed, but now it was
Yeah.
worth it. And they're
We
like,
got
oh,
this. We got this other guy though.
yeah, thank God that the fucking droid saved the day again. You know, like that was the right. Like if BB-8 hadn't happened to team up with that dude and get the ship, that movie would have ended with everyone dying. So it's like that was like honestly writing wise the biggest fuck up in that movie was that whole like they went there for this one purpose and then they would just got distracted by this stupid like petty we want to fuck these rich people over like instead of saving the fucking planet like the universe. I don't know, like that was the worst part about it, you know. And I granted there's
Fair.
there's a lot of tiny things, but we'll save that for the next Star Wars podcast. So say that
True.
because this will
True.
go
True,
forever.
true.
This will go on forever. So
True. So, well, you're talking about lore. You're talking about books.
yeah,
Have you read? I've read these personally. I read one of them very recently. But have you read? A lot of people are speculating that the WandaVision series is going to take from House of M or Tom King's Vision books. Have you read either of those books?
I have not read them, but I know like the basis of what happened with them, and
Okay.
I think that they very much based the so what I've noticed is they take like vibes and aspects and settings from a lot of comic book stuff. So like there's a lot of the Infinite, for example, on the Infinity comic, that arc where Thanos, it's
With
actually
Danny Gauntlet.
it's like with Thanos and then his son with Thane. It was that whole arc with Thane and stuff. And like it's almost one of the first times you really see the Black Order all teamed up together with him. And they're fighting in space and they're fighting on Earth. There was a lot of aspects in both movies that were taken from that, like the Battle of Wakanda with Cull versus Black Panther. That happened in that comic, that whole battle with Black Order, and that was going on. And there were certain things that I think they borrow. They're like, hey, it would be cool to kind of interpret this, but they don't directly take it. They make it their own thing. So I think they did that with the Vision comic. We're like, oh, hey, he's living in a suburban house with a family. What if we kind of took that, but made it like them? And then, so I think that's probably as far as it'll really reference that comic is the setting itself. But with the House of M thing, I very much think it's so hard because with all of the stuff introduced or we know is going to be introduced, there's so many explanations for how they're gonna, you know, it's like, you know, how there's Secret Wars where they merge the Ultimate Universe. That's like there's time travel because you got like the quantum realm, you got, you know, Kang the Conqueror coming into it, you have the multiverse with Doctor Strange, you have like the Spider-Verse. But I think it's all going to stem from events triggered by what they did with the time travel and the quantum realm. And then that coupled, I think that is going to lead into how Kang gets involved somehow. And I think that Wanda is going to be like the caveat that triggers this chain of events with Doctor Strange and the Spider-Verse and the Ultiverse. And I think she very much I think she manifested Vision back to life. I think she's trapped in some illusion by her own accord, or she can't control it. And she's being monitored by swords somehow. And they're all just like trying to get her out of it or monitor it somehow. And like, she doesn't want to get out of it because she wants this perfect world in her head, or she can't control her own powers. And you're going to see like brings her brother back, but maybe it's Quicksilver from the X-Men universe instead, because it's a multiverse Quicksilver. And she starts opening these portals, and she, for all, I mean, she could be the very thing that brings the X-Men into the universe. You know what I mean?
We'll get more into that later.
Yeah.
So before that,
sorry, I went off. Like I said, I get so easy to go off.
It's good. It's good. We'll get back there. Before we get into everything that we think might happen, spoiler warning. Obviously, if we predict something and it becomes true, and you're mad that you found out about it through listening to this, you know. So just
sorry, we're so smart. Like,
I doubt any of it will be true, but it might. Who knows? I always get surprised with this stuff sometimes. But I'm going to do a brief breakdown of how we got here. So, Wanda was first introduced in the end credit scenes of Captain America: Winter Soldier. You see Von Strucker. And has the scepter, and he is doing tests on Wanda and her brother. Of course, we don't know who they are yet. And then they come in the beginning of Age of Ultron as quote unquote enhanced individuals because they couldn't say mutants then. We'll talk about more of that later. And you see they were experimented on by Vera Sucker, as I said, by what we now know is the Mind Stone. Wanda puts a vision in Tony's head, making him see a nightmare scenario where it's his fault the Avengers lose to a big universal threat. So he decides to study the Mind Stone when they bring the scepter back to Avengers HQ, and he decides to put a suit of armor around the world and create this plan he has called Ultron, which is an artificial intelligence that will protect the world. He does that, it kills Jarvis, and then it creates its own body and goes on a murdering rampage to kill all the Avengers because that's what will save the world in Ultron's mind. Then I wrote a whole thing of this.
No, I mean it's good. It's good because this is what my brain thinks about half of the time is all of this
Yes.
stuff.
So Ultron killed Jarvis. He goes on a rampage to defeat the Avengers. He recruits the Maximoff twins to help them, steals the Mind Stone, Vibranium, and Dr. Helen Cho to create himself an indestructible body. After Thor has the craziest Asgardian acid trip of a lifetime, he helps create who we now know as Vision, because he says the Vision. Vision ends up saving the day, along with the help of Quicksilver, who sacrifices himself to save Hawkeye and sends Wanda in a crazy, furious chaos magic rampage. And that makes Wanda and Vision unofficial members of the Avengers. Then we get to Civil War. Wanda accidentally blows up half a building because she can't control her powers fully yet. It brings on the Sokovia Accords. The Sokovia Accords divide the Avengers, which then ends up dividing Wanda and the Vision on each side. Vision almost kills War Machine. The Avengers end up divided, but then we see in Infinity War that Wanda and Vision have been together. That romantically, even though he's a robot. Not going to go into explaining that because I don't think we need to.
We all have theories.
Yeah. But we all have, Paul Bettany has theories himself too. They're obviously connected by the Mind Stone. Again, the Mind Stone helped create Wanda's powers, and the Vision has it in his forehead. And so Thanos and the Black Order come to get all the stones. They escape first. They go to Wakanda to try and get the stone out of his head without killing him. Then, of course, as we know, the Black Order and Thanos wind up in Wakanda. Wanda knows she's the only one who can take the stone out to end up killing Vision and leave it so Thanos can get the stone. So she does that in one of the most heartbreaking, no sound sequences probably in movie history. And people don't give that moment enough credit.
I agree.
I'll say that now.
I think the reason, I don't want to interrupt the whole thing. I think the
fine.
reason of that is because I feel like comic book people all knew the connection between them, but I feel like they did a great job with the time they had to work with. I don't think that we got enough exposure to let their relationship grow on us as viewers, as like a casual viewer. I don't think people were invested in their relationship is the reason why that got overlooked. And I think that going back to that scene after this show pops off, people are going to have a greater appreciation for the dramatic moment that was.
That's fair. And then obviously Thanos reverses time and then just plucks the thing out of his head and throws his lifeless body on the ground. And then Thanos snaps, Wanda dusts away. 5 years later, Wanda comes back, goes on a crazy rampage and beats the fuck out of Thanos, who doesn't know who she is yet at this point. We win. Everyone's back. Thanos is defeated. Yeah, we lost some people, maybe some important people, but we won. So we're moving on. And then, very importantly, Wanda's talking with Clint at Tony's funeral, and she says that he knows that Vision and Black Widow know what happened and know that they won. Interesting to see how this leads into where we're going now. So that's pretty much it.
I always thought that was an endearing statement. I never looked into that too much, unless we're implying that she somehow has some kind of awareness of them after death. You know what I mean? It would make sense of it. It would make yeah. So that's an interesting. I never actually I didn't really look too deeply into that conversation that they had on there by the water. So I'd be interested if you're right about that. You're the only person who have ever brought that idea to my attention. So
well, here's the thing about the MCU. especially now. Even if stuff was put in as just like this is a cool thing, they have made it very evident that everything is done on purpose.
Yeah, that's fair.
Especially at this point. And I listened to about an hour worth of interviews before we recorded this podcast of them talking about, because critics have now seen the first 3 episodes, so that it was more of just general questions. Obviously, Elizabeth Olsen has to be the best MCU interviewer I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, she's great.
Because they'll be like, so is this going to go here? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And that's it. Just like, oh, I have no idea. And she's like, even they were talking about Easter eggs and stuff, like the wine bottle, which is like a nod to House of M and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, even if I knew about these Easter eggs you're talking about, they would go right over my head. And I'm like, wow, you have been trained by the Marvel assassins.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, Tom Holland has like fucking a price on his head. Like, and
not anymore. They're like, don't say anything.
Yeah, him and Mark Ruffalo are like, dude. I love that one interview with Benedict Cumberbatch. He's trying to cover his mouth because he keeps saying shit he's not supposed to say.
I think that was the one where he goes, "Yeah, this next one's crazy. Everyone dies."
Yeah, it's funny too. Whoa. Yeah, he and Mark Ruffalo are just like the most lovable people in real life, and they're both like they just can't not spoil everything. It's so funny.
I know.
But yeah. So that's. You get me thinking about the Mind Stone, and I just wonder. There's so much there's so many implications of that as far as powers, resonance, like what they could do with it. If it gave them their powers, could it give all the X-Men powers? Like, there's the X-Men implications. There's I
have a theory about that. We'll talk about it now. It's fine. We'll skip the first thing. We'll talk about this. So here's my theory on that. So in numerous of the trailers and TV spots, they have shown her in the same jumpsuit she's in Age of Ultron, like super sunken in face, and you see the glow of the Mind Stone. You've even seen it in the blue capsule of the scepter. They're going to revisit that moment, and it's going to explain something,
like how she gets her powers.
Yeah. Because they keep showing, like, you can see even in the last scene of like the last like little trailer they shown, it's an explosion of yellow and it's her in that jumpsuit. They're gonna go there and something is gonna get answered from how that happened.
Oh, I'm excited for that. I gotta be honest, and I know this is probably a different topic. I just really, really want Quicksilver to come back because I love.
You mentioned the we were going to talk about like predictions. Yeah. And that was one of my predictions. And new rock stars, like their biggest thing is speculating on stuff coming. They have a show called Rogue Theory where they just have guests on and they pitch their craziest theories that probably won't happen, but they're like, oh, this would be cool if it happened. And one was if the big bad is Mephisto of the series.
That was one of my thoughts.
That Evan Peters could show up as Quicksilver, but really he's Mephisto in disguise as Quicksilver. It really wouldn't explain why he would be another world's Quicksilver, but who knows?
I think that my issue with that is like Mephisto makes sense, obviously, for a villain, but like Sword is the random card that doesn't make sense because like you're mixing supernatural villain with the alien task force guys now. So it's like it just makes me think if Sword's involved, this has to be a galactic thing to some end.
It could be. But it also, Sword could just be the new Shield. It could just be Shield times like 1,000,000. Because the crazy thing about Sword in the MCU is that they've now revealed that on the back of the pager that Nick Fury gave to Captain Marvel, there's a Sword logo on it. And he gave her that pager in the 90s. So it's like Sword has been a thing for like 30 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's sick. Yeah.
Maybe even longer.
So do you think the peak has been out there this whole time?
For
everyone listening, do you want to explain what the peak is?
Oh yeah. So if you've seen the after credit scene of Spider-Man Homecoming, everyone is assuming that's the peak, which is like their spaceship headquarters of Sword. So it could be like that's the biggest thing about Spider-Man Homecoming is that the ending of that, like the after credits of that movie was like, oh holy fuck, J.K. Simmons back. Oh holy fuck, they just outed Peter Parker. And then you're like, oh holy fuck, Nick Fury and Maria Hill weren't even in this movie this whole time. They were Skrulls the whole time. It's like that movie perpetually like brought forth the feeling of like paranoia
Yeah.
because like the whole thing of him being like the illusions of Mysterio, he's like, "What's real? I don't. Are you real?" Like him freaking out. It's like it all, and it's so weird because even like I never would have guessed they were Skrulls, but when I was watching the movie,
Yeah, I was like, his acting's off. I was like, he's
I was like Maria Hill's like, and I was also like Maria Hill's like mean, and she's
yeah,
not
no,
like mean.
yeah, no, I the whole movie I was like, Samuel Jackson just doesn't seem like he's playing his character like he normally
Yeah,
does. It felt like someone like the whole movie, it felt like Ben Mendelsohn
and
talking
you know
through
why?
Samuel Jackson, you know?
And you know why how it like they got away with it because it was like it's after they came back from the snap. So I was like, oh, they must just be like super weird coming
Yeah,
back from the
yeah.
snap or whatever. You know, I was
It's
like,
like now you don't trust anything.
exactly.
You know, and yeah, so it's like, but it's funny because the God, my brain is going in circles now because I'm thinking about all these rabbit holes that you just brought up. It's like I don't want to. I know I just can't. Like, dude, I wish I could be on all of these. I was thinking about just how one of the most exciting things for me is like now I'm gonna be just looking in all of these shows for Netflix characters to start popping up now because like now
Yeah,
they're all popping. We almost got confirmed. Obviously, Kristen Ritter, we just heard about is possibly coming in
rumor. Yeah,
She-Hulk. Everyone thinks that Daredevil is going to show up as like Peter's lawyer to defend him in the new Spider-Man or something like that. But like also he could show up as a lawyer working with She-Hulk and have
yep.
that for one episode. All they like, I think what they're going to be doing is really these episodes are really going to feel like comic book issues where like you see random characters all of the time for
Yep.
maybe it's one page. Maybe it's a phone call to Daredevil. Like they're always around all of the time. They're just not always involved with each other's lives. So it
Yep.
might be one episode where there's a Daredevil team up. Kind of what
Yeah.
Mando did with Ahsoka one episode, and then you got
Yeah.
Bo-Katan another episode. They're all out there, and like if they take that approach they took with Mando, and they don't make us feel like, oh, we're only gonna watch Wanda and Vision. Like you gotta know
Yeah, I
those other
don't think it's
characters.
going to be that. Yeah.
Yeah, like that would be like everyone's sick of that. No one wants to watch a superhero movie and only see that superhero anymore. Like I want to see at least 3 other heroes pop up, even if it's for one dialogue scene, like per movie minimum. Like because like I want to feel like it's all happening all at once, all
Yeah,
the time.
and they're already bringing back Randall Park's character from Ant-Man as an agent of Sword, and the same thing with Kat Dennings' character from the Thor as an agent of Sword. Like,
Yeah, they're in this. Yeah,
yeah, they're bringing some.
and they
like,
were great. They were great
yeah,
NPC characters, like
yep,
so good that I'm totally excited. Randall Park. It'll be hard for me to take him seriously because he's such a goober, but like I'm sure
yeah.
he has another side to him. Like I feel like they set him up almost as being a little stupid. So it's like, okay, he works for Sword. Let's see how.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm interested to see how he worked for like the FBI or CIA or wherever it was, and
or
now
did he?
he's working with Sword. I mean, yeah, it could have been a front for sure.
That maybe
You're
him
right,
being a
you're
dipshit
right.
was a front too.
Yeah, it could have been.
Like you
Because
think
they're like, yeah, we know Ant-Man's doing other shit, just like let him do it.
or yeah, or it's like, are you really gonna leave? Like the FBI couldn't even protect our capital from rednecks. You're gonna leave the FBI to watch fucking Ant-Man? Like it's like this. He's fucking Ant-Man. He can literally level a neighborhood by kicking it if he decides he wants to get big. Like it's like there has to be more than the FBI watching him. So it's like
we were talking. Obviously, we're talking about Sword, and we talked about Mephisto a little bit, and Catherine Hahn's character, her name is Agnes, which some people think could be short for Agatha Harkness.
But I know that I'm having like I'm watching Game of Thrones right now, so names are I'm losing it on names right now.
Basically, Agatha Harkness worked for Mephisto. She did help teach Wanda some magic stuff.
Okay.
But the only thing. So that's like another big thing to lead to maybe Mephisto.
The mystical stuff is a need to know basis thing for me. Like I haven't read a lot of the mystical comic stories, so it's like
Agatha's kind of like an older character too.
Yeah, I only know what I've had to learn to understand everything around what I know, if that makes sense. Because that's what Marvel is. It's like a proximity thing. So like so Scarlet Witch, I probably should have mentioned because I'm doing this show. One of the reasons I mean obviously Winter Soldier would have been good too because he's like my other favorite character, but Scarlet Witch is one of my favorite Marvel characters. Like she's so amazing. Like when I found out they're bringing her in and like everything they've done with her has been so good, I think that they're doing her such justice. So I had to look up, I researched as much as I could about her character over the years. So it's like when I saw that she was teaming up with Doctor Strange, like that was huge for me because that was like one of my Marvel fantasies was like him training her like in
Right.
sorcery and shit. And like
Right.
so, and then they brought the multiverse in it too. So like I'm very much like get annoyed when I find out I didn't know something about her character. Like when you brought up that character, I was like, fuck, why don't I know who that is? I probably should know who that is, you know?
Yeah, so basically she's like she worked for Mephisto, and there was like a big storyline where Mephisto, which they do have kids in this show, he like
Wait, did they
wills.
confirm that?
Yes.
I saw her pregnant, so I didn't know if they were
Yeah,
actually gonna
they've
they
shown
brought
like
that up.
cribs, and Brandon Davis from Combat.com interviewed her and talked about her being like a mom. So
Oh
it's
my
like
god.
confirmed.
Okay.
Obviously, it hasn't been confirmed. It's Wiccan and Speed, but we are inclined to believe that it will be Wiccan and Speed. And they were originally created by Mephisto to like bring Wanda in so he can steal her chaos magic. Whether that's the case or not, we'll see. And it's part of kind of what helps spawn House of M is that her kids get taken away and she goes in this crazy fucking spree. And obviously the thing at House of M that is happening for sure is like the more of the pocket universe thing. She create obviously it's gonna be way different because she did it with mostly the X-Men, and she kind of made Magneto a god, which I obviously do not think is going to happen. That'd be very weird if they shoehorned that in like this. But it seems like it's just like you said, MCU is doing a very good job of taking from the source material but making it their own. So it's kind of like their own way of. But something interesting they did say in the interviews is that they kind of made it seem like at least the first number of episodes will be like sitcoms through the decades kind of thing. They haven't like directly confirmed it, but it seems like each of the first episodes will be going through the decades. And then it kind of just evolves into some crazy, epic Marvel movie ending kind of
I
thing.
heard almost starts, and this is a show that I tried to watch and then I understand on a level of like what it's supposed to be, but I could not get into or wrap my head around was Twin Peaks. And I feel like this is going to be very Twin Peaksy, like Marvel Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I never
where
watched it, but I can see that comparison.
It's not going to make sense until it all blows up in your fucking face. Kind of like Fight Club. Like,
that's
like, it's like Quentin Tarantino or something. Like a dialogue, it's like you think Marvel, you think there has to be fight scenes and action, but like you forget that like Game of Thrones, like dialogue goes a long way when it's done right. So,
look
and I don't
at the
actually,
beginning, the first act of Endgame is like all dialogue.
Oh yeah, dude, and like, oh my god, the dialogue in those movies, dude. The Russo brothers, I have a signed Endgame poster with both of their signatures and Sebastian Stan's on it that my friend who works for Marvel got for me to con. But I'm not one of those guys who's like obsessed with like certain directors. I obviously like them. I'm like, oh, he's a good guy. I like his movies. But like, I know some people are like, they're big on that. The Russo brothers are like that only, like other than maybe George Lucas, are those only directors where I just like worship like the ground they walk on. Like anything, like I've never seen anything from them that was not brilliant.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Taika Waititi is becoming one of those people for me.
For sure.
I love that he's so involved with both universes, Star Wars and Marvel. But I would expect some little X-Files-y vibes from. Yeah. So as far as like the villains go, I was thinking all day about that. But I just occurred to me because I was like, what the fuck? Okay, you got Sword, and then what you just changed my mind about Sword. Like I guess it could not necessarily be a space thing.
It could be something.
Maybe it's not. But I think there's one thing that everyone forgot about because Marvel kind of just like dropped the ball with the marketing. It's like, is the Eternals. So it's like, there's a whole space entity movie that was supposed to be out this year already. That movie was supposed to be in theaters, I'm pretty sure last fall. So it's like, you have this whole galactic movie that was supposed to be out before the show ever aired because Winter Soldier was supposed to be out first.
Yep.
So and then that's a whole other conversation of like, okay, were the shows even connected at all? Because otherwise, like that would have really fucked with them if they've released them out of order. So like Winter Soldier must have no bearing on the events of what we're about to watch.
I don't think so. I think they'll be in, obviously they're taking place in the same world, but I think the implications of both will be very different.
Yeah. So I thought the Eternals, sorry, I just don't want to lose my train of thought. I thought the Eternals was supposed to be kind of a Captain Marvel-y flashback movie because they've been there for so long, but I didn't realize that it takes place like in the current MCU apparently. So
it's supposed to span like thousands of years, so it's going to be both. It's going to be both a period piece and present kind of thing. At least that's how it's explained.
Is it? I'm so hyped that fucking Kit Harrison and the dude who played Rob Stark are both in this movie.
Yeah,
Like,
so tight.
I'm so hyped. And is it Kit Harrison playing the Black Knight?
Yes.
That's pretty.
So he's
I
pretty
don't.
much playing the MCU version of his Game of Thrones
Yeah,
character.
that's fucking amazing. Jon Snow is like he's my hero. So
So
I just I love that. So
it's
I
funny
just wonder if
okay,
they're involved. Are they involved in this? You think? Like, you think maybe their villain is involved somehow, and they got sword involved?
so there's this weird. I watched this Nerdist video, and I want to give them
I
credit.
do know Nerdist.
I never would have thought of this, but my friend sent me this Nerdist video, and so this is like crazy tinfoil hat theory, but if it's right, it would be pretty nuts. So obviously, the MCU has been famous for leaving numbers that end up being nods to like a comic book. So in a couple of the TV spots and trailers,
rephrase that.
so a lot of like the Spider-Man movies or Captain America movies, you'll see like a license plate number, and it'll be like ASM like 2 something, and it'll be a reference to like a Spider-Man comic that had like
Mysterio
in it or something.
Yeah,
like
I see what you're saying.
They sneak that shit in all the time.
Yeah.
So there's a couple TV spots where they have the radio, like the clock radio, and on both shots you can see it on 116 and 117. So there was an Avengers run that on Avengers 116 and 117, it's part of the Avengers Defenders War, which includes Black Knight, funny enough. And so the whole main thing is that just like the Doctor Strange movie, Strange made a deal with Dormammu to leave the world alone. So then Dormammu hires Loki to trick the Avengers.
Oh God, Loki could be bouncing around in all this too. I just forgot about that.
Yeah. Who knows? And he tricks them into finding a piece of this artifact called the Evil Eye. And then when the Evil Eye is brought together, it creates a bridge from the real world to the dark dimension. And that's his way of being like, oh, I didn't create this bridge, so I can come to Earth now. Cool. So their theory is that Dormammu is the big bad of WandaVision and could be the big bad leading into Spider-Man 3 and the Multiverse of Madness.
That's a really, really good theory. Also, I would like to add to that oh my God, I only don't know his name because we're talking about it, but the guy who became a bad guy in the Doctor Strange movie and took away
Mordo?
the guy's Mordo. Yeah, my brain couldn't find his name. Mordo could very much show him this. Like, no, too many wizards. Maybe he doesn't want Wanda wandering around with all this power. He could show up. But yeah. I think the reason I think that's the better theory is because they did confirm that this is going to directly lead into Doctor Strange 2. So it would make sense that the two things were connected to some end. I don't personally know, like, there isn't a lot of modern, I know they're just starting a new one, obviously, but there really isn't a lot of new recent Eternal stuff. So all the old stuff it's like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Old comic nerd that are like super comic nerds. I'm like, do you know anything about the Eternals? And they're like, nope.
Yeah, I think the MCU is going to do what they did with Guardians of the Galaxy, where the MCU dictates what they are. Like, Guardians have been like, they look like the movie characters now.
Yep.
And another thing that makes me think Punisher's coming back with John Bernthal for sure is like the Punisher looks like John Bernthal in the comics.
That's why I think John Krasinski is going to be Reed Richards, because it looks like John Krasinski.
Yeah, I think Emily Blunt and John Krasinski as Reed Richards and Susan Storm, it would be idiotic for them not to do it.
It's like the best fan cast ever.
Yeah, I will say there's one. I've been right about a lot of castings before they happen. I called Heath Ledger, and I was young too, so that's wild. Wow. I called Heath Ledger as the Joker. I called Robert Pattinson as Batman. That's ironic because Batman Joker, like, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I remember I was saying Robert Pattinson, and people were shitting down my throat over it, and now they're all like, "Whoa, it's so badass!" And I was like, "Yeah,
people are. Well, it took the trailer to change people's mind. They're like, "It's not going to work," and I'm like, "You watch." I was like, "This is going to be the best Batman movie, probably of all time." And I was like, I am like, I used to still like DC over Marvel in the beginning stages of Marvel because DC had the Dark Knight trilogy. I was like, that's unstoppable. And then MCU just became the juggernaut that it is now. But it's as soon as I heard Robert Pattinson as Batman, I was like, this is going to be amazing.
So Well, so I guess I here my thing is like I know they're talking heavily about X-Men right now. X-Men's on the horizon, and there's Wolverine's casting is going to be a big make or break thing for the X-Men.
Yeah.
And I am 100% certain, like I would bet my life on it, Anthony Starr is the perfect Wolverine casting. And
The
that
guy who
is
plays Homelander?
yes.
That
And
is
if you
nuts.
if you have seen the show Banshee, which is one of my favorite television series, it was a show from years ago. It had 4 seasons. It was Anthony Starr's first big show. He plays a ex-felon, like jewel thief, who becomes a sheriff of a town, and he's like a total badass, like savage. He is the exact height Wolverine needs to be. He has the perfect level of range as far as being completely psychotically enraged and like terrifying looking, but being
Yeah.
very emotional and vulnerable. And he's like great. He's like got the look, the ruggedness, the like the hairy chest, the fucking stubble, the jawline, and like the attitude and the action chops. And he's right at the ripe age that they love to cast characters that they want to have for the next 10 years, even though they keep doing
True.
they got to stop casting like 45-year-old characters to play superheroes for the next 20 years. Because I feel like it's running into some issues. Like I cannot believe Jeremy Renner is slaying it the way he still is, because he's like in
Dude,
his
that
50s.
dude is the man. He still does crazy action movies and shit too.
Yeah, and like I did not know that he was already 45 in like the first Avengers. You know what I mean? Like it's like Mark Ruffalo is like it's like all of these guys. Like we would still have Tony Stark if Robert Downey Jr. wasn't getting so old. You know what I mean? I think that's the main reason because I think that MCU without Iron Man is not something anyone did on purpose. They did because they had no choice. I don't think they did.
The Russo brothers knew that he was going to die when they picked up Winter Soldier.
Really?
Or I think it was Winter Soldier or Civil War. They knew then, like when they were prepping for it, that Tony Stark was going to die. Like I think it might have been for Civil War, because they gave him the keys to the castle. They're like, you're doing the next 3 big movies. They're all going to connect to each other. They're going to end the Infinity Saga. Like they knew pretty much everything that was going to happen.
Huh. I feel like it's because Robert Downey Jr. wanted to lay it down though, because I feel like they had to know that Iron Man's guaranteed money and like guaranteed success to it. And it's like,
but the thing with the MCU is, and they've granted that luxury now, is that it doesn't matter what it is. They can put out anything and it's going to make money. They're now doing things for story-wise sake rather than money's sake, because they have like, they're putting out a Shang-Chi movie. Like so many people don't even know who Shang-Chi is.
Yeah,
but it's like
you're doing Guardians.
You're doing a Marvel. Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, but you're doing a Marvel movie with a predominantly Asian cast. Like that is printing money. Like regardless if anyone knows anything about it, I don't know shit about Shang-Chi other than he's a kung fu master and the Mandarin's going to be in it. That's all I know.
All I know, the only exposure I had to Shang-Chi was in the Infinity Collection, which is one of my favorite comic arcs, obviously because fucking Thanos is a huge part of it. But he's just, I've only seen him that he has this cool red jumpsuit, but like. There's one scene that I never forget from that comic where, because he's still a guy, he's still just a human. He doesn't really have augmented strength to any degree. He's just that badass at martial arts. And it's supposed to highlight how badass martial arts is and the fantastic things that people can do in real life that we probably don't even know about. You know what I mean? With martial arts. So it's like, but he's literally squared off with Cull Obsidian, is having a fist fight with him, and he's literally basically being like, I heard that bell, like, you know what I mean? He's like bleeding from the mouth and shit, and he's literally like in a fist fight with this Titan that was kicking Iron Man around like a soccer ball earlier. And like it's just that one sequence, I remember I was just being like, man, like I gotta know more about this dude, because this dude's a badass. And so I found out about that movie, and then the 10 Rings thing. I'm really interested to see how they take the whole, it's now not an Iron Man villain, it's the villain here. What are they doing? Is it Mandarin?
The 10 Rings were the Iron Man villain. It was just the Mandarin itself that was not the Mandarin. And they do explain it more. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
One shot.
All Hail the King. Yeah,
I saw that. And he's like, oh, you stole his name.
Yeah. Like, and that's more leading into the 10 Rings. And also that in a deleted scene, the character's there in Ant-Man 1, but in a deleted scene, you can see one of the guys who's trying to buy the tech from Darren, I can't remember his full name.
Yeah,
He becomes Yellow Jacket. Darren
Cross.
In a deleted scene, you see another like side of his neck, and he has a 10 Rings tattoo on his neck. So it's like they've been planting these
Oh,
like little seeds like
so
throughout
they're
the whole
still
show.
out there. So you think
Yeah.
we're actually seeing the actual Mandarin?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's gonna 100% be the real Mandarin.
And do you think they'll bring that? I think it would be cool because he's a good actor. The dude who's playing the interviewer, who's actually the Ten Rings agent, would it be
Oh,
cool
it's
to have
not
him?
him. They
Oh
have
no,
him
it
already
would be cool to
cast,
have.
but
It would be
yeah.
cool just to have him show up
Oh, that would be
as
awesome. Yeah.
as like a side because that was a good. That was that his that little shot. Like
Yeah,
he was
dude.
really
It's
he was really
nuts.
good. It was
Yeah.
really good, and like I was like, how is this not? And you know what's the funny is I watched that. I was like, that was one of the most intense scenes I've probably seen in the MCU, and it
Yeah.
was, and no one knows it exists.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
just go YouTube All Hail the King Iron Man 3 or whatever. And like I was like, because someone's like, oh, because people are talking about like all the stuff that's coming out this year. And I was like, oh yeah, Shang-Chi's in July. And they're like, oh, I know nothing about Shang-Chi. And I was like, all I know is a kung fu master. I was like, but it involves the 10 rings. And they're like, that I was like, that is like the most full circle MCU thing like ever. It was in the first
Yep.
movie. And they're like, oh yeah, that Mandarin thing. I was like, go watch this one shot. I was like,
And it makes
that'll
me
explain
wonder.
everything.
It makes me wonder if it's gonna connect to Armor Wars somehow with
Good.
Rhodey and Ironheart. I love
Definitely
that
good.
Rhodey is getting like a show
Finally.
basically.
Yeah.
Like he's Don Cheadle. Like God bless him. It's like he's just killing it. He's not letting his age stop him. He's like, yeah, I'm fuck it. He's like, I love these actors who are just. I mean, I'm granted, I'm sure the paycheck has to be a part of it, but these roles are a daunting, exhausting
Yeah.
thing, and like you're signing your whole life up for it. So it's
Pretty
like
much.
the actors who really give it their heart, like it's like they do that for people like us, and I like they're.
Yeah.
It's like
For
when a
sure.
musician making music that you want to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a few more questions before we wrap
Oh
this
yeah,
first
yeah.
episode up. So will Vision make it out of the series?
I think so. I think that they never planned to do Paul Bettany as dirty as he was done. I think Vision is, you got to remember too, like the MCU is known for saving his life and his career. That he was like basically sitting on a curb with no work when he got called to be, when they're like, hey, do you want to become Vision? You know what I mean? Like it revitalized his career. He was in Solo.
He's like, this is the craziest thing. He right now is the longest standing MCU actor.
Yeah.
He's been in since one.
And it's like, but it started out as this small thing, and like his career was really going down. It was really bad, and like it's completely been bounced back, and now he's it already showed that his Dross from Solo is going to be popping up in the Bad Batch, because you see him in a hologram,
right.
And now it's
in
finally
Clone Wars, yeah,
in the bat, yeah. So you're finally gonna like maybe see why the fuck Darth Maul was in Solo. Like that's all gonna come full circle.
Yeah, the craziest part about that, not to sidetrack on Star Wars again, but is that it's like you've seen what happens with Maul in Clone Wars, then you see what happens with him in Rebels, but there's that whole weird
in between
part. But it's crazy though, because it kind of makes it seem like he was just a capture of Palpatine the whole time.
Yeah. I think that
unless it's after he gets freed, and it's the stuff between when he gets freed and we see him with Obi-Wan, maybe.
Well, he escaped at the end of Clone Wars.
Does he? I thought that's when he got like imprisoned. And
Ezra frees him. Ahsoka lets him out to cause a distraction when Order 66 happens.
Oh, right.
Remember there's the hallway scene where he kills everyone with the door and shit. Right. That was like one of the best scenes from the show. How did you fucking forget that? The hallway scene where he's like fights all the clone troopers with just pieces of the walls and shit, and he's like throwing them and impales the guy.
For some reason, I thought Palpatine still got him at the end. I don't know.
Maybe I might be mistaken, but I think he escaped. But
maybe that whole weird thing when Ezra gets him in Rebels, and he's in that weird temple thing.
Yeah, but I don't think Palpatine put him there. I think he gets there by his own fruition. But I think that we're gonna see, because he's gonna end up being the Syndicate. I would love if they take this opportunity to bring Prince Shizor and the Black Sun out of the Legends fully. I think it's a perfect time period, because they could very much, if they wanted to, do a Shadows of the Empire thing, right, like, and bring all that stuff with Boba Fett that happened back, now that people are all on board with Boba Fett again, and like bring Prince Shizor and all that. So that'd be kind of sweet. But let's go back to MCU. But anyways, Vision, Paul Bettany. Yeah, so like I think that, especially because you got to think the all new different Avengers, this team they're trying to form, where we got Miss Marvel, Miles will find his way into the MCU somehow with the Spider-Verse. Like Miles Morales is coming. There's no way there's not. He's beloved by comic and movie and everyone alike now. He's got his own video game. I think they're trying to build that all new Avengers team. Vision's a big part of that. They need to keep a couple of the heavy hitters from the old phase to really make it still feel like the Avengers, like where it's not all new faces. And like he just got into the universe, really. Like it's like it feels like he has been there for a while, but he never really had his moment. And I think they weren't gonna just pluck him out and not even have him be in the big finale after they just introduced him into the MCU in a way. Like he was always going to come back around somehow. And I think it's going to be a testament to like making us all believe how powerful Wanda is to some end, whether it's her or something to do with the stone. But you got to think she can literally bend fabric to her, or like bend reality to her will. And like they already planted those Easter eggs where it's like, oh, maybe the best parts of Vision are still salvageable. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be something there where I think he's going to become a permanent member of like the new Avengers team.
That's good points. There's been some things that have been brought up that make me tend to agree with you, but also think maybe not. So
why not?
For one thing, Paul Bettany did say that we'll find out what happened with Vision's body after Infinity War in an interview, which is very interesting. I'm very interested to see what happened with that. Because like they're like, yeah, your body got thrown on the ground. Like, do we ever find out what happened to it? And he's like, yeah, you do. And I'm like, wow, okay. That's kind of a big thing to let go in an interview, but that's cool that we get to see that. That doesn't really have to do with it. But even in the logo where it says WandaVision, there's two little lines between Wanda and Vision. And it looks like Wanda equals Vision. So obviously the only reason Vision's alive, or at least what everyone's speculating, is that she wills him back to life. Whether he's more of a figment of her like pocket reality or an actual thing, we obviously do not know yet.
I mean, I think that she could I think she could use her powers, which we already know came from the stone, to reanimate his body and put his personality inside it too. There's 1,000 like excuses you could write for that.
Yeah, but a big thing with that is her power enough to take a Infinity Stone from atoms to reform it? Because that stone's in his forehead.
Yeah, well, the stone's gone.
Well, they're not gone. They're just like they've gone to say that they've been reduced to atoms. The way of the stones still exist in the universe. They've just been reduced to literal atoms.
So well, I don't think she needs. I think my idea is that like.
But he has the stone in his head. That's like the only thing. It's there.
So is she herself? Well, I mean, when I see WandaVision, I think of it all as like this whole show is her vision. So it's like in her eyes. That's how I read it. I think that I think it's a play on words, but the show is about her.
Right.
So it's like I think maybe it starts out as an illusion or a reality she's created, but now the application of her getting her powers from the stone make her powers limitless. So it's like the idea of her being able to do whatever the stone did to animate Vision's body with her own powers is completely plausible if they want to write it that way. I don't know how they write it to be convincing, but I trust the MCU with my firstborn. So it's like,
yeah, that's true too. It's just like I feel like this show is, because even from the first trailer, I like felt this show is going to be very dark and very like heavy in a way, and I feel like it's going like it's going to be her like dealing with grief and maybe the only reason I'm like I would be okay with Vision not making it out of the series is that we're going to spend 6 hours with them kind of figuring this out together and figuring out a way where she can like let go of him in a way.
I was gonna say
like more of like a resolution.
Did you watch that new show, The Stewardess or The Flight Attendant?
Oh, not yet. It's on my list though.
It's very good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think that actress got a second chance at her career after Big Bang Theory kind of typecasted her. I think that she was great in that.
She's also the voice of Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
which everyone says is incredible.
Yeah, I haven't watched it because I haven't really been in the headspace for watch DC stuff. I've been saving that until like the next time I'm in a Batman mode and I just want to watch everything fucking Batman and play Batman games. My brain switches, like I have to just drown. I drown myself in the whatever fandom I'm currently in at the moment. So I literally save. I'll like just collect stuff and then put it in a pile for when I'm like, oh, WandaVision comes out, and I'm just gonna be like sucking
Right.
Marvel's dick for like 5 minutes. So like it's like But what were we? No, I've like totally lost my train of thought now. We were just talking about. Oh yeah, them coming to the flight attendant. I can't tell you because it's a spoiler, but there's kind of a no. I know this isn't a huge spoiler. It's kind of a consistent thing that happens throughout the series. But basically, there's like a character that isn't alive that she speaks to in her head who is trying to help her figure her own problems and the whole situation out. And it's almost like she's bonding with her own idea of this person in her head. And I think that is a good idea. That show made me think that what you just said is actually a really good idea and could give us closure for Vision as well. But I just feel like there's so much Vision hasn't gotten to do as a hero in the MCU.
Yeah, we have not seen his full potential. Like,
Yes.
I would be stoked. The comic fan in me would be stoked if we saw, because we kind of saw it when he died, but if we got like the black and white Vision from the comics, like in real life,
or like his, or if he comes back with his like red and green, or maybe they figure out a way to make like a Vision that just it's not the Soulstone Vision, but it's a Vision with an AI that has Vision's personality and could still be an Avenger. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I just feel like he's a major. You got to think Thor is probably, unless Natalie Portman's sticking around for the role, which more so implies that I really think they're doing the new Avengers team because they have almost everybody now between Lady Thor, Miles, Kamala Khan. I think Nova's in the works somewhere. It's like, so like it would make sense to have Lady Thor and Vision. I just feel like the Avengers needs those powerhouses because Captain Marvel is never going to be a consistent permanent member. They need like the basic core group, which is going to be like, and I feel like Doctor Strange is going to be inadvertent, but not like if you had like the basic team, it's probably going to be like Spider-Man, War Machine, maybe Lady Thor, and I don't know. It's like what are they going to do? Is are they going to have a five person team up ever again?
I think they're going to do. I think this is going to introduce, because I guess they're now named this the Multiverse Saga, like the next thing. It's called the Multiverse Saga, and I think it's going to be like the saga of teams, like not just one team. Like the Young Avengers are coming, like America Chavez is coming, Ironheart's coming, Stature's coming, Kate Bishop, Ms. Marvel. Like Ms. Marvel's not really a traditional Young Avengers, but she might fit into the mix there. But like that's a whole team in its own. You know what I mean? We might get like a West Coast Avengers and a new Avengers, and like the Thunderbolts have to be coming, and that's not really a good team, but like I feel like it's coming. Like they might even do as Guardians of the Galaxy, because Chris Hemsworth has said like I will play Thor until I like die, pretty much, and that dude can probably play Thor for a long time.
Oh yeah, Thor's not going anywhere. I don't see any reason for that. I think that I like that idea, and I agree with you. I think that
that's what I hope, at least. I would be down to see so many different teams. Like I'm just down.
Yeah, I mean, now that they have the Defenders, there's like
they could do like the Invaders eventually.
And like if they're smart and they know they can do it, if they want to do it, it's like they will have like an episode of one show where maybe all four Defenders show up to team up for one episode. Like that's how you make this successful and make it huge, is you do the things that no one thought you would do, that everyone wants you to do.
That's why I love predicting, because it's usually with Marvel, it's a lot of the time wrong, but they always do make it. They give you what you think. They give you what you wanted, but you didn't know you wanted it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And then Spider-Man too. It's like we forget, like Spider-Man is the main character of the MCU, so it's like his path wherever he's going is going to be massive.
Yeah, like this show is going to be big implications for Spider-Man 3 too, as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, just try to trace yourself back to the first time Tony Stark said we're putting together a team, and like all of the things in your head that were happening, and the what ifs, and the oh my god, are they gonna do it? And then you look back at like shit you didn't even know you were looking at was hinting to shit that you were gonna see for 8 years. Yeah, and it's like we're about to be set up for another 10 years of that.
Yeah, seriously.
And it's bananas. And I think the good part is when, because of COVID, it's ruined everything. But I think TV shows on Disney Plus are a way for them to not have to wait for COVID to keep the MCU going. I'm
Sure.
sure a lot of the decisions to make some of these shows might have been movie ideas that they decided were better off just putting out now because they can't halt putting Black Widow out forever. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
So it's like,
I feel like even though it's May and obviously the virus is not going to be handled by then at all, I feel like they'll either going to do a Mulan thing or a Soul thing where it's, well, more of a, or maybe more of like a Wonder Woman thing where it comes out in theaters and Disney Plus, whether you have to pay in Disney Plus or not.
yeah.
Who knows? Because they're doing that Ray and the Last Dragon movie, and you have to pay for that one too. It's
Well,
a premium VOD too.
if
So
they can charge the same amount of money, like who fuck cares?
true. I mean, like everyone shits on Mulan. I thought Mulan was really good, but everyone's like, "Oh, it did terrible," and I'm like, "Yo, it did 261 million on VOD, which is mostly Disney Plus stuff." I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
and then it made its international run, which wasn't that great, but they made their money back on that and some. It's plus whatever subscribers they got for that month and everything. You know, it's like,
Yeah, I think Black Widow at this point, no one's gonna care if they don't just drop it on Disney Plus. Like it's kind of
people like when that Wonder Woman announcement came, I thought Marvel was going to announce it like the next day.
Yeah.
That like Disney Plus, what's up? You know, but
Yeah,
it's like now they have like 5 shows coming out next year. You know what I mean? It's like WandaVision leads straight into Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm sure Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to lead almost straight into Loki. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that was the point I forgot what we were talking about. That was the point I was getting to. I think we're gonna see the most Marvel content in the least amount of time in our entire lives while all this shit gets up. And you're not gonna have to wait for shit. And then the second Marvel lets up, Mando and Boba Fett are gonna come hit you in the face.
And the thing is, it's not even gonna let up because it's like Boba Fett comes out and Spider-Man comes out in like the same week.
That's true. If Spider-Man comes out, COVID, you know, I feel
like it will. Like right now, they have this is what Marvel, including Marvel, Sony has coming out this year. I know Morbius got moved to October, but it's like, you know, Black Widow May, Venom 2 June, Shang-Chi July, Eternals November, Morbius October, and then Spider-Man 3 December. Like,
bro, I forgot that Morbius was supposed to be out already, and like
so is Venom.
It literally, oh my god, yeah, and like, well, now Venom's gonna be rated R, which is interesting, but
I think it was always gonna be rated R. They just didn't reveal it.
Dude, if you can't have Carnage rated PG-13, it just doesn't work. But yeah, it's like you got like, and then it's funny too because everyone was like, "Why the fuck is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man on the alley poster?" And then you're like, "Why is Toomes not in prison?" You're like, "Because this is Toomes from the Sam Raimi universe, and Morbius is going to end up in Tom Holland's universe through the multiverse shit." Like,
or I kind of assumed it as more so they're in the MCU, in that like the poster was just kind of there as like, because that poster in the movie could not even be there, or it could be look more like Tom Holland, or I don't know, it could lead into like one of the other Spider-Men being in part of it too. Because
that's a good point. Because now the Sony shit's all the Sony shit's all MCU now, correct? Like all
they haven't confirmed it, but they've kind of alluded to, like, there's been rumors that Kevin Feige's helped on Venom 2, and like when that Morbius trailer came out, everyone's like, "Oh, it's in the MCU. Like it has to be. Like fucking Vulture's there, you know."
It does have to be. Like,
and then they made like an Instagram for Flash Thompson for his like vlog thing or whatever, and he talks about like vampires and shit like that, and it's like, you know, it's this weird line where it's like, is it going to be like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where the Spider-Man stuff will reference the MCU, but the MCU will never reference them? Like, we don't know.
You know? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. As long as the characters.
Spider-Man 3, you know, like Spider-Man 3, if they all show up, then we're like, okay, then it's all connected. Like,
I mean, it's like I said, I think Disney finally figured out that they need to just give the people what they want, and the people want Spider-Man and Venom. And the people want Tom Holland because they want Tom Hardy and Tom Holland, because Tom Hardy was an amazing Venom. The movie wasn't perfect, but Venom and Tom Hardy were perfect.
Yeah, that was my takeaway from the same movie. Same thing.
Yeah, like Venom looked, even without the white spider logo, which as cool as it would have been in hindsight, would have been kind of cheesy and corny.
So I feel like it'll happen once he sees Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think he's like, "Oh, we're a hero now too," or some shit. But Venom looked so goddamn good in that movie, and like, I have just been like fantasizing about just the Game of Thrones executions we're going to be seeing with Cletus Cassidy.
Because that's the thing. It's like I didn't think it was Disney. I think Sony finally smart enough to like being like, hey, we need to work with Disney and have this all connected because it's going to make us more money. It's like
Yeah,
they saw Far From Home make $1 billion and they're like, oh, this was all us. And it's like, no, it was the MCU. You were just part of it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they were finally like, obviously when they're like, oh, we're being detached from the MCU and the internet went wild. And they're like, oh, we fucked up. Okay, we're going to go back. And then it's when they made the new deal. And there's already rumors of a deal going further than Spider-Man 3 and whatever movie Spider-Man shows up in other than Spider-Man 3, which could be Doctor Strange 2, maybe, or whatever. It's like the thing with like them pushing back any more movies, it's like they already have so many movies lined up after them moving them back like twice now. It's like I don't think they can move any back anymore.
Yeah,
Like
they have to just put it all
especially
out.
especially with WandaVision coming out now. It's like they cannot delay any further. It's like we have Disney Plus now, you know, like even Wonder Woman got pretty bad reviews and but like it still did very well in the box office for a limited box office release and it did super well with HBO Max. Like it got them a
I
ton of new
haven't
people.
I haven't even seen the first one yet, and it's like granted, I've never cared about Wonder Woman as a character. Like I've never really cared about like the whole red white I don't know. I was never really into the whole Amazon thing. Like I thought her costume was kind of lame. Like I think Superman's costume's lame. Like, you know, it's like so it's like I'm not invested in DC like in the DCU because the DCU does not deserve me to be invested into it. Yeah, so it's like I don't watch every fucking movie like I do with Marvel because I know it's going to be good and all connected. Like they haven't earned that from me yet because they've had so many things fall short and like their whole universe not be structured properly and like inconsistent. It's like it's almost like everything that is bad about the new Star Wars trilogies is the same thing that's wrong with the DCU, but it's worse. Where it's like they weren't planning things out when they did Man of Steel. You know, there's too many gaps and like too many like and then like there's obviously the Snyder cut. The Snyder cut, the biggest thing about that is it is giving me a second chance where I want to re-experience it. And if I love the Snyder cut, I'm gonna go watch Aquaman. I'll go watch all them, you know, whatever. I'll be like, buy me into it. You know what I mean? But it's just like it's just been such a mess. Like, and yeah, I don't know. But the Snyder cut, and this is a whole other conversation. But I was like, just makes me think like if they could do something like some extended director's edit cut with the new trilogy and add all this deleted Knights of Ren shit, Luke scenes, all this stuff and retcon and fix and maybe fill in some stuff, I think they could easily save that trilogy for a lot of people.
It's hard with that because the Snyder cut was such a difficult situation because he had a very tragic thing in his family happen.
Yeah.
And he was taken off the movie and then Josh Whedon came in and just like did his own thing. And that's why it's like literally two movies fighting with each other within a movie. And so like the whole Snyder cut thing is like very particular situation. Like there is like a director's cut of Batman vs Superman, which is a million times better than the theatrical release one.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
Because it fills in the gaps. Like it took 3.5 hours to do it, but it does it. You know, it's like I remember I watched BVS in theaters and I was like, I mean, that was okay, I guess. It was just kind of rushed and like everything was in the trailer, so that kind of sucks. And then my friend and I watched the extended cut and I was like, that was way better than I remember that movie being, you know, because it had more stuff in it.
And I couldn't remember because it had been, I mean, I bought it because I loved Batfleck. That was why I bought the movie. That's why I watched it on loop. That's not on loop, but that's why I keep watching it is because I loved, I mean, there's never been a Batman fight scene better than the one in that movie to date. Yeah. Than when he fucks up the dudes in the warehouse. Like it was like playing the Arkham Knight video. It was like the Arkham Knight video game, but live action. Like it was amazing. And his voice was dope. He didn't have a stupid voice like Christian Bale had. He didn't have the weird looking mouth and the weird helmet. I hated the Batman design in the Christian Bale movies. I thought he looked ridiculous. And it was hard for me to take him seriously when he was talking and how his helmet was shaped. I love those movies to death. But every time I go back and watch it, especially because of those college humor Batman videos, I can't take Christian Bale as Batman seriously anymore. I just see his like mouth like sticking out of the mask with his little lips, like the way he would talk like that, and like how he couldn't turn his head in the first movie and it looked really obvious Michael
Yeah.
Keaton, it was like I never noticed he couldn't turn his head.
Yeah.
But Christian Bale looked like a parrot in the first movie. It was just like, but I don't know. And I'm not going to get on that whole chain. But anyways, I was just going to say, like, I think that I feel like they just are capable of doing anything now, and it's going to go well. And they know that they can do all this ridiculous stuff that they were afraid to do before.
Right.
And it will work and people will love it. So it's like, I just won't put anything after Luke Skywalker showed up. I'm not putting anything past Disney anymore, because that was a whole, like, I now think that they're prepared to do what they always should have done.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I like the idea of, like, I wasn't expecting Falcon to show up in Ant-Man. That was one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah,
it's
fun.
Having those random other heroes show up, like, don't treat it like, oh, they'd have to pay the actor too much, you're not going to see him for a cameo. It's like, nope, you're going to see Chris Evans for 2 seconds in this movie.
Yeah, Disney does not give a fuck about that, obviously.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, being able to do that, like, knowing that, like, any show I watch, it's not like, oh man, I gotta wait until this to see my favorite character. It's like, bro, you might see the Avengers in like 4 of these solo movies. Like, there's going to be team ups and crossovers in every movie now. Yeah, and that's for sure. And so it's like nothing will fall short. So I feel like I'm most excited to see who's going to show up in WandaVision that they're not telling us.
Yeah. That was like, I mean? That was my thing. Like going back to like Mando, like all that stuff leaked. And I was like, if this shit is leaking, what is hidden is the craziest thing ever. And it was the craziest thing ever, like, and that's exactly the thing. And Marvel's even crazier about getting shit like very tight to the vest. Like nothing gets out about Marvel. You know what I mean? Like, like they trick us in trailers. Like no one thought Infinity War was going to be what Infinity War is. No one thought Endgame was going to be what Endgame was. Like they killed Thanos in the first 5 minutes. Like, like they are the kings of making you think something's going to happen and that doesn't happen. Like they are the kings of it. So it's like exactly what you said. I can't wait to see where they go with all of this, especially WandaVision. I feel like WandaVision is going to be a very, very wild ride, and we're going to be back early next week with our reactions and thoughts of the first 2 episodes of WandaVision. So
that's right, dude. There's 2. Dude, that just got me hyped thinking about that. That's pretty sweet. I forgot about that. That's smart. Yeah.
Like the first season of Man did the first 3. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm ready to not be waiting. I can't believe how long it's been since I've had new Marvel shit.
It's been like over a year and a half.
It's insane. And first time since 2008, there hasn't been a Marvel release in a year.
I know.
It's crazy.
It's nuts, but we're about to get more Marvel than we can handle. So
I'm hyped, dude.
Yeah. So for this one, we're going to wrap this one up, and we'll see you guys early next week.